Here we go. So we're finally here, performing for you. So sit down, enjoy this DK review. Put your hands together if you wanna clap as we take you through this monkey crap, bruh.
Oh man, am I excited. Before I even start talking about the game, I want to address this cheesy rap intro. And yes, it's very cheesy, and objectively speaking, it's not very good. From the perspective of someone who is an absolute diehard for So Bad It's Good though, the song takes the cake.
This song so strong, it isn't funny. Can't make a gremlin cry out.
Honestly, this intro brings back memories, and I think it's a great slice of Rareware history to bring you back to the 90s.
Grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. Oh yeah, walnuts, peanuts, pineapple smells. Grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. Oh yeah,
Unlike this recreation, that's kind of just garbage.
we really hope you have a blast, cause this friendship is built to last.
Believe it or not, I have a bit of my own history with Donkey Kong 64. When I was a kid of about 6 or 7, I owned a Nintendo 64. With most games, I couldn't make it to the end. I didn't know there was an end. The first game I managed to complete was Super Mario 64. After seeing the credits scroll, I got exposed to the fact that a lot of games actually do have an ending. From there, I ended up going back to many games I had previously grown bored of and tried to finish them. After 4 years, I beat Ocarina of Time. My 8-year-old self was mesmerized by the credits. There was actually a chunk of time where I would just go replay the final boss over and over, just to relive that initial feeling of triumph. I would actually repeat this process for most of the games I beat, but there was one game I could never finish. There was one game I would literally ask anyone at school who played video games what I was supposed to do to open that stupid door. I vowed that one day I would finish this game. As a 27-year-old trying to get back into game reviewing, reliving some of the old classics I had put off while going to high school and college, while working 2 jobs, mind you, and finding my own path in life, essentially, I finally had time to sit down and reflect on some of the old gems of the past. This actually feels like a perfect time to revisit this challenge. The one game I could never beat, Donkey Kong 64. So I've actually got a bit of a problem in trying to review this game. I want to produce a review in the 15 to 30 minute range, and well, Donkey Kong 64 is huge. It'd take me hours to analyze this game fully. If you want me to analyze this game the same way I did for Star Fox Assault or Adventures, you would have an hour-and-a-half long video. As a viewer, I wouldn't be able to commit myself to watching that, so I don't want to subject you guys to that either. The sacrifice here, unfortunately, will be a little bit of depth. Think of it as a game run. I can't talk about every golden banana. This isn't a 100% run or the most efficient route of any percent. This is more of a personal and casual run to finish what I started in my youth. I cannot emphasize just how packed this game is, by the way. Every corner is covered in collectibles. Honestly, this comes pretty close to being the ultimate collectathon. It's like the idea for this game was, let's make the most massive collectathon an N64 cartridge can fit. And that's honestly how it was sold.
This turbocharged game has better graphics, more moves, bigger bosses, huge worlds. It's so big we included an expansion pack to get it all in.
There's a ton of videos on this peripheral, by the way, and I'm not gonna go too in depth, but supposedly the real reason was basically a band-aid to cover up a game crash that would happen after about 6 hours of gameplay. And trust me, if you get into it, you will be playing 6 to 8 hour sessions minimum. This goddamn minigame alone took me 3 hours of straight attempts. Yes, I'm insane enough to play the Beetle Race for 3 straight hours. Fear me! It's when you come home after a long day of work. You've had Donkey Kong 64 looping in your mind. How do I get into that area? What ability do I need to unlock? You already have in mind what you need to do. You've dreamed about it. You've thought about it all day long, and now you get home, it's 5 o'clock, you power up your N64, you play and play and play, and oh crap, it's 2 o'clock, what the hell? Work starts at 8 a.m., what the hell are you doing? Take 3 melatonin, dude, you gotta knock out. Let's get this out of the way. If you play using an OG Nintendo 64 controller, this game is gonna play like ass. Get yourself one of these, or at least get one of these without the little ball. Do not torture yourself with this. I'd say if given the right controller, the game actually plays pretty smoothly. It's 2019, damn it, take advantage of your Amazon Prime membership. Now, one thing that kinda bothers me is these tutorials at the beginning. My guess is that they were considering the audience as children here. They already have this large, safe area for you to practice and get accustomed to the physics and the controls. In spite of this, you still get tutorials to start things off. I will give it that there are a lot of abilities to go over, and this is just the stuff you get from the start. You get punches, a running hit, a jump hit, which also helps extend your jump in some scenarios. Sort of a workaround for a double jump. You get a backflip, later on you get bombs, guns, this music shot that en masse murders frickin' everything, a photo camera that captures fairies to unlock bonus content in the start screen. At some point, they literally start mapping these the same way you would map key commands. You know, like Command-C on a Mac or Control-C on a PC is copy. Z left C button pulls out your gun. A game with a massive map calls for massive movesets, but why stop there? Why only have one moveset when you can have 5 playable characters with their own unique massive movesets? They all control differently, and in my opinion, they all control well. As a kid, this absolutely blew my mind. There aren't extreme amounts of variations between the characters, but they each get movesets that reasonably fit their personalities. Diddy is fast, Chunky is slow but really strong, Lanky has long arms and can do a handstand. They each get guns with their own separate types of ammo. Peanuts, pineapples, feathers, grapes, etc. They all get their own musical instrument as well. Diddy gets a guitar, Donkey gets bongos. I love how Chunky gets this dingy little triangle. Honestly, this game is loaded with personality, and it's charmed me even more as an adult than it did as a kid. The balance of 5 playable characters is pretty much the principle that this game lives and dies on. All the levels are designed around collectibles for 5 different characters. Different colored bananas for each of them to pick up separately. For example, only Lanky can pick up the blue bananas. Only Donkey can pick up the yellow bananas. There's also a plethora of collectibles. You got bananas, which you could think of as musical notes from Banjo-Kazooie. They're basically used to unlock the boss, and we'll get back to that. Gold bananas are basically Donkey Kong's Mario Star. Like how getting more stars unlocks a new set of levels in Mario 64. Getting enough golden bananas unlocks new levels. This game's biggest strength is also its biggest weakness. Its biggest draw is also its biggest draw of criticism. If you love large maps, lots of collectibles, unlockables, and just generally speaking, a gargantuan amount of content for the time, this might be the best the N64 has to offer for you. But if you hate getting lost, if you hate backtracking, and this is where my biggest problem of the game comes in, if you hate fucking minigames, you've got a nightmare ahead of you. Okay, so remember how in my Star Fox Adventures review I said, in all fairness, Rare loves to do this kind of thing. But between this and all the Krazoa challenges, the challenges in Lightfoot Village, the races, the mammoth riding, this is excessive, even for them. Well, clearly I hadn't played Donkey Kong 64 in a while because holy minigames, there's a lot of crap. Okay, so some of these minigames are actually pretty fun. I enjoyed racing the Beetle and the mining carts, calling back to Donkey Kong Country. Also, it is great that not every minigame is required to be played to beat the game, but you will most likely play minigames at some point just based on the ratio of bananas you need to how many of them are locked behind minigames. Also, this minigame is the bane of my goddamn existence. At first I was like, oh cool, I get to play as a crocodile. But the beavers just won't go into the goddamn hole. Suck my beaver bothered donkey dick. For this particular shooting minigame, I felt like an idiot. I felt like a slow old man. I felt like I was missing the strategy. I took to the internet to see what I was missing, and they literally said to pause and unpause the game to frame buffer your shot. The only realistic way to beat this minigame is to shoot ahead of time and get lucky or to cheat. I guess the one thing that I would give about Donkey Kong 64's minigames that I'd still place above Star Fox Adventures is that a majority, we'll get back to that, of the minigames in Donkey Kong 64 are completely optional. In Star Fox Adventures, however, every minigame is an obstacle that progresses a story once you complete it, so almost every minigame in Star Fox Adventures is 100% required. Also, some of Donkey Kong 64's minigames are actually fun. Almost none of Star Fox Adventures minigames are fun. I will say, by comparison though, the Donkey Kong 64 minigames are way, way harder, and often they're completely unfair. So the levels themselves, God, I hate that fucking beaver game, sorry, are generally designed to varying degrees of success around a certain set of principles. On a surface level, these areas are split off into sections with platforming challenges. You can buy weapon upgrades and musical instrument upgrades, and apologies for my childish behavior, but come on. This hasn't aged well. Seriously, dude, this is a kid's game, right? The music is way too porny. You got this, like, sexualized monkey, and then she's talking about making you feel good and giving you, quote, extra melons, haha, innuendo. Yeah, no, not a fan, sorry. When you get enough bananas, you give it to the pig to make him heavier than the hippo so you can go fight the boss. Okay, we need to talk about this. Dude, wear shirt! Oh, and listen to the sound he makes when he eats bananas. After you beat the boss, you're given a key. This part is actually really sad. You bring the key over to the side area off of K. Rool's main island. There, you find a giant crocodile that says he was caged after refusing to destroy Donkey Kong's island. Oh, my poor heart. Okay, so how about the boss fights themselves? Consider the first boss a training round, if anything. I will say they really pushed the N64 with the lighting on this one. As a kid, this thing terrified me. This boss comes back around a little bit harder the second time. The first round of the second boss was way easier than I remember. The second round is actually really difficult though, and pretty satisfying with a big fat punch at the end of it. Army Dillo terrified me as a kid, and Mad Jack still terrifies me as an adult. I experienced something fighting this boss that I did not expect. The first time around, I got my ass handed to me. I tried many different methods of jumping to the next block, only to keep failing. What I didn't realize immediately was that I hadn't gotten the upgrade to extend Tiny's jump yet. Once I got the upgrade, the boss turned into a platforming challenge that I thoroughly enjoyed. Didn't enjoy the nightmares though, oh my god, woo! I'm sure not everyone experiences Puff Toss the same way, but for me, it was an absolute nail-biter. I kept getting through the rings right before the time would run out, and I was at the bottom of my health when I won. I have not experienced a close call like this in a long time, and for that reason, Puff Toss actually ended up being my favorite boss. The following boss, King Cutout, got a pretty good laugh out of me. You fight an obviously cardboard cutout of King K. Rool, and I also enjoyed the fact that every Kong got to get involved in the fight. There's one more boss battle, but I want to save him for the end of the review, so we'll get back to him. Okay, to avoid an hour-long review, I'm going to shamelessly, dead-ass speed round all the areas in the game. Jungle Japes is essentially designed as a beginner stage to teach you a bunch of things. Bananas lead to an obvious vine, they tease the goal to free Diddy Kong. There are these caves that are mostly designed to let you play with Diddy Kong. But back in the 90s, that good old N64 controller made this area a flippin' disaster. In the back of the level, you get more stuff for the other oh my god, it's a rhinoceros! Oh, this thing is a tank! Oh. Well, talk about limiting. I'm pretty sure this is the only area in the game that you use him too. Oh, and there's this mini game in the start menu, and I guess that's a thing. The Angry Aztec consists of a few caves, open desert areas, and a few buildings that have their own complex systems inside. It's also where they store the remainder of the missing Kongs you have to go unlock. I personally didn't like this area that much. I think that the layout of some things just don't make a lot of sense. Especially this colored banana placement. Like, why is that here? Why did that lead me to what? Now I gotta switch out the Kongs for no reason. I sort of have mixed feelings about Frantic Factory. On one hand, I think I found myself switching out the Kongs on a very regular basis. There are a few things I really love about it though. One is the aesthetics of the enemies. This weird toy theme is absolutely wonderful and terrifying, and I honestly wish there was more of that theme in here rather than all this cold, hard steel. I guess it is Frantic Factory, so take it or leave it, I guess. The boss fight is really the best part. After the boss fight, though, I had no reason to return here. Well, actually, there is one. Gloomy Galleon has potential. I'll start off with the positives. The fish guy is a fun callback to the Donkey Kong Country games, like the Rhino, and you get a bit more freedom with him than just this small area. The boss, like I said earlier, was an absolute nail-biter of an experience for me. There isn't really that much depth to the thought process behind where the character items are found. It's sort of all over the place, and that was really discouraging when I had to continually make my way back to a character. Also, you can't pick up any of Lanky's items with the fish, which was a totally unnecessary lock on things having to exit the fish every time you wanted to pick up a blue banana. Kinda ruined the fun. Fungi Forest uses a very innovative idea where you can switch the area from day to night, and certain areas are only accessible at night, while others are only accessible during the day. A few puzzles require a switch to complete it. While I do love this idea on paper, in practice, I often found myself lost since the level is so big and some areas are accessible in some instances but not others. It's a great concept, but in my run, I ended up staying out of this area after I completed the boss fight. There is one thing in Crystal Caves that managed to constantly piss me off. Who cares how long, too often. This big-ass version of one of the regular enemies stomps all around, causing big sharp rocks to fall on you. It always seems to happen at the most inconvenient times, too. Honestly, that's all you need to know about this level, because generally speaking, it's very middle of the road. Without this inconvenience, it would be like a C, but this brings it down to a D. Luckily from here, the game mostly gets really good again. Creepy Castle is just a joy with an interconnected castle inside surrounded by an exterior castle which has multiple ways to explore and climb the area. But here is where I found the most aggravating minigame I've ever played in my So anyway, the way the level is sectioned off between Kongs leaves something to be desired for most of the rest of the game. Creepy Castle is topped off with a classic battle that involves every Kong and is just a total joy to complete. There are games that have moments, that define who you are as a gamer, that force you to push your own limits as a gamer. Hideout Helm presents one of these moments. As you play Donkey Kong 64, one of your collectibles are blueprints. You murder these buff, bass-voiced dudes. And take this blueprint that you give to this fox to receive golden bananas. What the game doesn't tell you until the first go at the moment of truth is that each blueprint you collect adds a few minutes to the clock that will be ticking down as you use the skills you've accumulated throughout the game to rush through this set of challenges. Most of it is fair and fun, but hold on, I'm not letting it off the hook just yet. Even with a good controller, this part is just plain difficult to control, and I don't know how the hell I did this as a kid back in the 90s with this little ball joystick. Yikes, 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 yikes. As an adult, I came very close and ultimately failed on the first try. So I went around and got a few more blueprints. Then I went back, having gone through most of the challenges already and being able to do it a lot quicker. I have to say, even though it only took me 2 tries, I haven't felt tension like that in a video game in a long time. Very satisfying. It's just too bad that this gets followed by the most egregious part of the game. Remember how I talked about that door I could never get past? The part of the game I could never figure out what to do? Well, here's the key. It's in the game's dialogue, but 9-year-old me was impatient and liked to skip often important text. In order to complete the present, now the past technically, you must first beat the past. That's right, Lanky will let you play this old Rareware arcade game, which is alright, but much, much more problematic. Back in Frantic Factory is the original Donkey Kong arcade game. Research tells me this is a shortened version of the original arcade game. I guess it's the same thing they put on the e-reader. I don't know, don't quote me on that. There is something actually kind of fascinating that all at once, you get to play an old arcade game on the Nintendo 64. It directly impacts your in-game process, and it's an early example of emulation being done on a Nintendo console by a Nintendo-endorsed product. The problem is that every time you die, you get booted out of the game back into Donkey Kong 64. And you're not even facing the device to put you back in, so you have to turn back around and wait for Donkey's slow ass to pull the lever. This is infuriating, and I've got hours and hours of footage of me trying to beat the game. You don't just have to beat it once, by the way. You have to beat it twice. This is the reason I could never complete Donkey Kong 64 as a kid. I couldn't even complete the original Donkey Kong arcade game. Even as an adult, I had to keep going back and failing for hours and hours at a time. To lock a game that was released for kids behind such a brutal challenge is honestly cruel. And that's why everything past this point is a new experience to me. So, it's time to see what I was missing.
Just one more.
Honestly, whereas Star Fox Adventures had a mostly satisfying game that kinda botched the ending, Donkey Kong 64 may have been a game that was too big for its own good, but it absolutely nailed the ending. This is how you go out with a bang. I may not have gotten to experience this ending as a kid, but I'm glad I finally got to fulfill my 12-year-old self's vow and complete this game as a 26-year-old. I'd say there are many things in this game that are pretty infuriating. The mini-games are a good example, but if you're a fan of Rareware, this is an example of them throwing everything they've got into a video game. It can be magic sometimes. If collectathons are your thing, if you like mini-games, if you cannot get enough, and if you want an absurd number of collectibles with a big cast of characters, Donkey Kong 64 should be about as close to gaming nirvana as you can get.
So close.
It isn't funny. Can't make a gremlin